But as it drops further down in the water, the harder it is to make out what that object is. We are Saints in the South, your source for gospel growth and good times. All right, here we go. Welcome, everyone. Episode 121. It's just me and Marcus today.
121.
So, Deuteronomy, chapter 6 through 8, chapter 15, 18, 29 through 30, and then 34.
Yeah. So Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy, that's right. Exactly. It's like the book of Deuteronomy.
Like, here we are. So,
Yeah. I'm kind of sad, man. This is the end of an era.
Yeah.
I know it's the end of Moses.
We ended Abraham, and then and now here's big time Moses.
Big time Moses. I like
as
Moses.
Kenny loves
man.
to talk about. How
yeah,
he had that staff.
That's right.
Beat a man to death. I don't know. He's just really into that. We don't even know if that's exactly how it happened, but anyway, he was a bad dude.
Yeah. Moses, to me personally, Moses has been a really inspiring prophet to learn more about this year. Thinking about Moses' desire to go into the promised land with them in chapter 3 of Deuteronomy 25 through 29. And this is where the Lord tells him, "No, Moses, you're not going." He says, Moses said at 25, "I pray thee, let me go over and see the good land that is beyond Jordan, that goodly mountain and Lebanon. But the Lord was wroth with me for your sakes, and would not hear me. And the Lord said unto me, Let it suffice thee, speak no more unto me of this matter. Get thee up into the top of Pisgah, and lift up thine eyes westward and northward and southward and eastward, and behold it with thine eyes. For thou shalt not go over this Jordan, but charge Joshua, and encourage him, and strengthen him, for he shall go over before this people, and he shall cause them to inherit the land which thou shalt see." Mm-hmm. And so this is where the Lord says, "No, you're not going." And he says, "You're going to turn everything over to Joshua, and he's going to lead the people." And if you noticed the picture and Come Follow Me for this section, it's a really cool picture of Moses at the top of Mount Nebo. And he's just overlooking there. He sees the promised land, the land of Canaan, there in the distance, and it just, to me, it just triggered some thoughts of what is going through Moses' mind as he's overlooking the land, realizing. Well, he's thinking, in my mind, that this is what I would be kind of contemplating: how far we've come over these last 40 years. I would think that. And we've seen the growth, spiritual growth that has taken place. Right. And then Moses realizing that he's not going to go with them into the promised land. And I could imagine him wanting to be there. This is a huge event. This is something they've been doing and getting ready for 40 years.
40 years, yeah.
That's right. And he doesn't get to experience it with them. If you think about your children, right? And you see them, doing different things that they enjoy, whether it was sports, reading, computer, whatever it is. And whenever you see the joy on their face, the joy in their voice and everything, it does a lot. It's you're really happy for them. You're more happy that they're experiencing it rather than yourself. Right. And so, and being able to see that, I think is huge. And whenever you're not able to make those school events, plays, whatever it is, it hurts a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I envision with Moses. Yeah, it's going to hurt him not being able to be there with them.
This is like his children.
It's exactly.
It really is.
Yeah.
Oh, especially now because the whole first generation is gone.
They've all died off, right?
Died off.
That's right.
This is really a younger generation.
Yeah,
these are all new. Who's left? Moses, Joshua, and what was the other one?
Caleb. Yep. And
those are the only OGs. Those are the three OGs.
That's right.
But and so you got a whole new people there. So
yeah.
40 years. And I guess I never just really thought about it before. You think of, wow, 40 years. That was, and then you realize why they were there for 40 years and go, why were they so stupid? Like, why didn't you listen to the Lord? I mean, what is going on?
Right.
It was the people. It wasn't Moses' fault. They were there for 40 years. We learned about it last week, as we've studied the Come Follow Me with the 10 and 2 spies. Everybody
Right.
focused on the 10 spies that said, no, we can't do this. I'd rather go back to Egypt, and it's like,
Right.
wow, really, all this. And that was after just 2 years.
All right. Yeah.
So they would have been there within 2 years.
That's right. Right.
Man.
And in some of the extra studying I was doing, the Lord, we talked about in a few episodes past, kind of giving the children of Israel some slack, right? Because they've been in bondage for so long and they're just used to murmuring. But at the same time, in some recent readings here, basically when they send the 10 or they send the 12 spies, right, and come back and 10 of them are saying, we can't do this and stuff, and the Lord asked Moses, basically, he's like, how long are these people going to do this? I mean, do they not realize all the miracles that have taken place in their life?
Blatantly obvious miracles.
Blatantly obvious.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, not just these little subtle things.
That's
you gotta
right.
try to get the Spirit with you to figure out, okay, that was no, it was just straight up like, here's bread from the sky.
Bread, here's quail.
Yeah.
Partner of the Red Sea.
Water's just
water from the rock. I mean, everything.
It's just like, wow.
Yeah, and the Lord has grown tired.
These were some hard-headed people.
That's right.
I'm sure it had something to do, obviously, with them being in bondage and things, whatever, this and that. But, I don't know. It sounds frustrating. I know Moses we talked a little bit about it last week, how Moses was frustrated a little bit. I'm sure the Lord was frustrated a little bit. But he gave them what they wanted. Like, hey, y'all want to hang out? Y'all hang out then.
Right.
38 years later.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean?
That's
He's like, I'm just going to have to wait for the next generation coming up. Which also says a lot about that new generation, that apparently they were taught somewhat righteously. Obviously they had good leadership, and their parents, I'm sure, because they did build a tabernacle and they did do, so it wasn't like these were evil people. They were just hard-headed, and they needed to remember, which is basically what we're talking about today. These things, and so here's Moses, the dad, quote unquote, the dad up there, thinking, hey guys, please remember these things, So that's where we're at. I mean, that's what's going on in Deuteronomy, which I did look up, or I didn't look it up. I actually heard it on another podcast, and I would say which one, but there's a couple that I listen to, so I don't want to give the credit to one or the other. But basically, Deuteronomy is a retelling of the law. It's basically it's repeating the law over again, basically, to the people.
10 Commandments are found again in Deuteronomy.
Exactly.
And he's. I also read in reading the Institute manual. It's basically a, Moses. Moses. He's getting ready to. He's not going to be with him anymore, right? And so, and he ends up being, we know from modern day revelation, translated, right?
Yeah.
From the Bible perspective. I think
and
he may
why
have died.
was he translated? Why was he not resurrected? Yeah, because I always thought I thought he was resurrected. But then you have to remember, Jesus Christ hasn't even been born yet.
Right.
He hasn't been resurrected, so Jesus Christ was the first. But why was he translated? Why did he have to be translated was always my question. Why couldn't he just died and went to the spirit world and done some good work there, and then be resurrected when right after Jesus was, and then he could do whatever, because he had to do some things before Jesus was even killed, crucified.
Right.
So he had to be there in the midst of, I think it was, what mount was it? I forgot. Anyway, the Mount of Transfiguration, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And that's when Peter, James, and John, I believe, and Jesus Christ was there. This was before Jesus Christ's crucifixion. Well, Moses appeared to him.
That's right.
And basically passed on, gave him, I guess, the priesthood or however. I might be getting this all mixed up. But anyway, he had to be a tangible being
that's
to
right.
be able to do this.
That's right.
But anyway, so I just always thought that was, it's good to know that you got the gospel to fill in the blanks.
That's right. That's
Even
right.
though I totally botched that up. I have to go back and read about the Mount of Transfiguration. But
yeah, but he's like a dying father.
Exactly.
And he's reviewing everything with them. Right. Saying, look, these are going to be the challenges. These things you got to look out for. This is what you need to do. And please remember all the blessings and covenants, that you've made as a covenant making people.
I think we see that a lot in the scriptures. We see it with Father Lehi with his sons when he's dying, when Jacob was dying, and I mean, just they want to reiterate to their sons and daughters that, hey, please, I hope you got something from what I was trying to teach you.
That's right.
I think about that with my kids all the time. I'm not saying I'm a Moses or a Lehi. I'm just saying that, I do try to teach good principles and maybe give some good lessons. I may have mentioned this before, but my son, who's on a mission right now, one time he called in, and he was talking to us, and he said it was just one of them moments where I was like, really? But anyway, he said somebody in his ward, I don't know, he got close to or something, and this guy had mentioned something to him, and I'm not going into details, but he just mentioned something to him that was just profound to him. And he was like, wow, he related it to us. And my first thought was, I have said that
100 times. That's right.
Times, and he just now got it. And which I was ecstatic that he got it. That's all that mattered.
That's
right.
I
wasn't I'm not Mr. Prideful.
That's
I said it first. It didn't matter to me, but it was just so it made me realize that children will hear when they're ready to hear, and they'll learn when they're ready to learn. And that's sort of what's going on with these children of Israel. I mean, these people of Israel. Man, they're getting it when they're ready. I guess.
That's right. A good friend of ours, Dave Howe. He always said, I think it's the teacher will appear when the student is ready.
Yeah, that's true. It's so true.
Yeah.
But having said that, what that really means is the teacher could be up there just becoming hoarse after telling this person over and over and over. But really, they don't realize it until they realize it.
But there's got to be a little bit of you though that wants Gavin to know that you taught that 100.
I do. Oh, I'll mention it. Son, I said that 1,000 times before. Yeah. I just want that one credit for something.
That's right.
One day.
That's right, yeah.
Just give me a credit. My dad was a pretty good guy.
That's right, exactly.
I'm good.
He knew some things.
Yeah, he knew a couple of things. He taught me a couple of things. But yeah. So yeah, here, Moses is just going after that. There's a great talk. I think it's Henry B. Eyring. It's called, Remember. Maybe it's called Remember, I think.
Right, yeah, I think so.
Great talk where and I'm not going to go into a lot of details with it, just the importance of remembering. I've found myself as I get older, obviously because it gets harder to remember things sometimes, but I find myself I've asked specifically many times in my prayers for the gift of remembrance. I've never heard of that as being a gift, but it's got to be a gift.
Absolutely.
It's got to be a gift. I say I've never heard of that. Maybe I just can't remember I've heard that. But but I do want to. I really want to remember, and I find myself sometimes wanting that remembrance to be like, oh, I wish I could quote that scripture.
Right.
I wish that I could, But really, in reality, it's like I wish I could remember what book in the Book of Mormon that scripture was. That's where I find myself. Like, was that in Jacob? Or was that in Alma? I can't remember. And I can get the gist of things, which I think is very important, to know what's going on. But I would love to have more clarity, I guess, in remembering things. That comes with studying and all that kind of stuff. But I do think it's a gift too. I think there's people out there that can really recall things quickly.
Absolutely, yeah.
And no, that's whatever, Deuteronomy chapter 6 that says that, and you're just like, wow, I could have read that last night. I couldn't have told you it was Deuteronomy 6.
Right,
it's just
yeah.
I can't remember, so, but yeah, remembrance is it's a big deal. So
it's been, I think we've made one plug in the past about my little book project I'm working on.
Right.
So I'll give another one. I actually I was working on it earlier this week, and I actually talked about the significance of learning from our experiences that we have, and how do we learn from that. One of the ways that I've used is journaling and writing. Man. So when you're doing scripture studying or whatever, or you go through, you have an experience and you want to learn something from that. One of the best ways to help further ingrain it is to write it out, write it down, and I believe that helps you ingrain that, and if it's close. I think it stays closer to the surface because, like you said, the older we get, especially as experience get further in the past, they kind of drop further down and deeper in the water. Right. And if kind of an analogy, if you're standing at the top of a pool or lake or whatever, and something that's fairly close to the surface, it's pretty easy to see and make out what it is. But as it drops further down in the water, the harder it is to make out what that object is. And so that's the way it is with our memory. The further away it goes, it's harder to recall the details,
right? And
the things that we may have learned from that. But if we write it down, it helps keep those things closer to the surface. And then in addition to writing it down, if we take the time to review and kind of go back and read our journal and things like that.
So what you're telling me is that a journal is a life jacket for memories.
Hey, I like that. Boom.
See you next time, folks. No, but yeah,
that's good.
You know,
I like that.
It keeps it to the surface.
That's right.
I mean, and it makes total sense.
And it allows the Holy Ghost to do more of its job, which one of the things is to bring all things to your remembrance.
Right.
Everything. So
the Holy Ghost has power to pull from the depths of your mind something up if it needs to.
That's right.
But how much easier and how much... it's like with anything. When we put our effort in,
that's right,
it comes way more easily.
Absolutely.
And yeah, no, I like that. Yeah. And it's absolutely true. And I can tell you, I was a great journal keeper, which tells you I'm not now, because I'm not that great at journal keeping. It's something that's on my mind. It's something that I need to do. I know I need to do it. I do write down my thoughts and especially like spiritual type thoughts and stuff. I've got tons of stuff on my notes and, just things like that. And I told my wife, I said, I need to print all this off. I said, I don't know how to, if I lose, if the phone's gone, it's gone.
That's right.
But mainly not for me, but just for my children or something. Want to see all these things. I need to do that. I do have to do that. I need to remember. Let me put remember. You ought to see my calendar and it's talking about remembrance. I mean, I put everything down, like run by the bank today.
Yeah.
It comes up at 2:00 or whatever. Anyway. And sometimes I feel like that probably hinders my brain from learning how to remember because my phone does it.
Just you're so reliant upon it.
I'm relying on my phone too much.
Yeah.
So, but so I kept a journal really good back on my mission every day. And I weren't great at it. I mean, I wrote down stupid things.
We all do.
Yeah,
we all do.
It rained today.
Right.
We played soccer for 4 hours or something, or whatever on P Day and whatever. And, I mean, that's great. That's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But the ones that I really cherish are the ones where I actually did, was spiritual and this baptism or this person said this or whatever. And that's the ones that I cherish the most and the ones that I would want my kids to really grab onto. But I did not long ago, you were there. I believe you were there. Whenever we did the missionary fireside thing, and it was at my house.
Yeah.
And I talked about my mission. And so I broke out the journal that day earlier to recall things, because I remember these stories.
That's
these big stories, pretty powerful things. Just for example, one of the things that I've told several missionaries that have went out on their missions is, your mission is the foundation for your life. Build well, like build it well. And because that was said to me in my mission from. At the time, I was thinking it was, I believe I always attributed it to Richard G. Scott when he came and spoke at a devotional there at the MTC. And for years, that's what I would say. Years and years and years and years. I mean, we've been home for a while.
Right, yeah.
Go back on that day that I was doing this has been a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Go back on that day and look through. No, it was from my district president in the MTC.
Okay.
Or branch president, I should say. I guess that's what they call them, right? Branch presidents for their little Sunday classes and stuff. Anyway, in the MTC, he's the one that told me that. And it blew my mind. I was like, what? This guy told me that? I thought it was, and it just, but this the thing. We really, we're human.
That's right. Yeah, we're limited in that. That's right.
Limited in that. And it just, oh man, I was just devastated. I was like, I have lied to so many people. The quote was right. The quote was right, which was the main thing. But I got the person wrong, and I attributed that.
It sounded like
Richard G. Scott.
It sounded like an apostle quote.
It really did. And maybe he got it from Richard G. Scott. I hope he did.
Right.
For the sake of all those people I told. But anyway, that's the point. It is extremely important to remember. Book of Mormon Central. I just saw a video recently. I think it's their latest one about these chapters. There was a lady, and I can't remember her name. All about remembrance. But she just talked about her her mother received a letter from her grandfather, which had died during the time of the Nazis and all that.
Right.
They're Jews. They were Jewish. Her father was Jewish and all that. He died in a concentration camp, I believe. Her mother was in a camp but got out when she was really young. And, 20 years later, the mother is grown and whatever and living in the United States. But this letter comes from her father like 20 years later, just arrives at their doorstep. He had died like way back, during all that. And but it was just a letter of telling her to, that for her faith not to waver, like going through some dark times. Don't let your faith waver. Remember the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because they're Jewish. That's
right.
the way they talk,
right.
and don't give up on Jehovah.
Right.
And the miracles which he's talking about, these miracles that we're talking about now, the manna from heaven and things. That's the Jewish, what they believe in, what and we believe in as well. I shouldn't say that just they believe it, but you know what I mean. It's but she had a strong feeling right before that, to remember Jesus Christ. Like she had a strong feeling towards Jesus Christ. She didn't understand why. Like she wanted to know more about him. She felt a strong connection to him. But anyway, so she gets that letter from her father, and so then she was really torn. Like, okay, so I can't go towards this Jesus Christ thing. I do need to remember Jehovah. I do, because this is the way they, but then her friend. So she prayed about it, and her friend brought her a Book of Mormon just out of the blue, and so she read it later. But the very first page of the Book of Mormon says, "This is for the Jews and the Gentiles to remember,
right.
And to learn and to know, to remember these things." And basically, she comes to the point that we all know now, being here in the church, is that Jesus Christ was the Jehovah of the Old Testament. And so it was just
holy cow, right?
Yeah, wow, just an
mind-blowing.
aha moment and just a big deal in her life. She realized she wasn't breaking the chain of her family, like going off in a different direction of different belief or whatever.
Right.
She realized that Jesus Christ was Jehovah of the Old Testament, and she was just overcome with the Spirit. And anyway, so but that book is for remembrance for us also. It's Jews and Gentiles. We're not Jews, but and it also shows me the love that the Lord has for these Israelites. It's astounding that how much he loves them and how much he wants to remember these people to remember him.
Right.
Because he remembers them a lot. And we know what's going to happen, and I'm not going to get into it, but in the second coming, he's really going to be so merciful to these people.
Right. Well, he's also see, these people have been living hard for 40 years.
Yes.
I'm talking about hard living.
Yes.
And and for generations they were in Egypt living hard.
Yes.
They're about to enter the promised land, where the land is flowing with milk and honey.
Yeah.
And so the Lord knows the temptations that's about to take place.
Great point.
So they're and Moses knows it too. So he is reiterating everything. Please remember.
Yep.
And it makes me think of the quote. It says, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And so they're about to go into the promised land where they're going to have plenty of everything, really. And so things are about to get real easy for them. Right. And I see it. I mean, you can correlate the United States of America to this, right? Because they came over to a promised land, right? Lehi and his family, where this country, this land is flowing with everything that it needs. To sustain millions and millions of people, right? And with things being so easy, it creates bad time. I mean, when things are easy, it creates lots of temptations, right? To be idle and to go in the wrong direction.
There's opposition in all things, and one thing. So the easiest thing for me to look at when I think about this, I mean, the sad truth is, that men and women forget God in times of prosperity.
That's right. Yep.
And peace. Honestly, we tend to, everything's going great. We're not worried about anything, so we don't tend to go to the Lord for anything because we're good.
Right.
We don't really need Him. I mean, maybe not what we're saying outright, but it's basically what we're showing. And so I think of the pandemic. So, wow. So you think about all this that's going on here. Moses, he knows that these guys, this is, like we said, a new generation. There's only 3 of them, Moses, Caleb, and Joshua, that have even seen most of those miracles. They didn't see this whole generation he's talking to now. They haven't seen the waters part.
That's
the
right.
Red Sea.
That's right.
They, none of that stuff. And so they have seen the manna come from heaven and stuff, but that is such a mundane thing now because it's like every rain to us. Right, yeah. It's raining. That's cool. I mean, really, you think that sounds weird, but for 40 years, it's pretty normal. It's not a miracle anymore. It's just normal. I mean, it's miracle. I guess they're wondering how it's happening, but
daily routine.
Yeah, it's just daily routine. So as far as miracles go, this new generation hasn't seen much. So Moses is overly concerned. He wants them. Okay, I'm going to at least tell you these things that happened, and so that you can remember. And anyway, so he's overly concerned. And so I think about this pandemic that we had. We think about things that we need to try to, what helps us remember today. Obviously, the Lord hasn't thrown out just because we have a new law now, or we have that law's fulfilled, the law of Moses, and now we're in a whole nother transition, another chapter of the gospel as we go forth, and Jesus Christ came and fulfilled the law, and now there's this new stuff. But we still have to remember and things. So what are the things that we do today to remember? Russell M. Nelson wants us to remember just as much as Moses wanted them to remember then.
Right.
And so, but I think of the pandemic. So think of this. There's opposition in all things is what I'm getting at. Everything, and when I say this, it's in general terms. Obviously, not everything for everybody's going great.
Right.
But in general, the church was outstanding, was going wide open, man. Right. We were changing this policy. This is getting more refined. This is getting better. We were moving, man, all cylinders. I was in the bishopric at the time. Everything was just flowing. I mean, we, just moving ahead, and you could feel like the church was just running like a freight train, man. It was going down the track. All of a sudden, this pandemic hit, and it felt like the train just went off the rails. I mean, not the Lord knows what He's doing. This wasn't a surprise to the Lord, but what I'm getting at for us, it was like, wow, what happened? What's going on? This isn't good. This isn't good at all. So there's the opposition. Opposition sort of hit, and like I say, I'm speaking in general terms here, as a group, as a body. But so this happened, this pandemic, and honestly, for a while, especially right at the beginning when we couldn't go to church for those first few months, couldn't go to church, obviously can't go to temple, things like that, and even especially with my son, this was right at the same time my son was getting his mission call,
right? Yeah.
Having to be set apart, it was everything was different. Everything was just different, it's just. But not
just weird.
Weird and not a good different.
Right.
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
We had a lot of differences coming up. The church has changed some policies. Those are great. Those are like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like, this ain't good. This ain't good at all. I don't like this. And some of the things were good. Some of the things I did like. And I think it's how we see things. If we paid attention to the good things, we were going to be all right. If we focused on the bad, we weren't. So this opposition came, and one thing that I always think about is that when good things happen, there's always something bad that comes along. It seems that way. It is pretty true. It's kind of like a law almost. I mean, it really is.
Opposition in all things. That's right.
It is. It's a law. So when bad things happen, the opposite has to be true. Good things will come along. And so that's what you started to see during this pandemic as we went on, and our eyes started to open. As long as we allowed the Spirit to touch us and to help us see those things, we could see wonderful things starting to happen. And just like with missionary work, I mentioned my son, just like with missionary work, the church, think about this. Tell me that the Lord's not in charge, of His church, of the world, obviously. But, we have a prophet. First of all, he's a medical doctor, during a pandemic.
Right.
You couldn't got any better than that.
Right.
That's great. And that's just a little thing. A minor thing, if you want to call it that. The other thing is that during this pandemic, as it was going along, and so the other thing, other than that, is that these missionaries that are going on missions today are tech savvy. This isn't me and you going on a mission from 1997 or whatever, didn't even know what this was. We don't know what a phone is, or anything. But these kids that are going out today, man, they can do things,
Right.
and TikTok and I'm not saying all these things are absolutely wonderful things, but they can be if they're used properly. And so they said they're seeing more baptisms in the church today through technology than any other time. But anyway, but it's interesting to see the good that's coming out of this pandemic,
Right,
all the things that are today, and it also lets us know that we need those remembrances. We need the sacrament every week, as we discussed before we started recording. We need the sacrament every week. We need conference every 6 months. We need, and then too, like you were saying,
State conference.
Really, we're getting conference every.
It ends up being basically about every 3 months.
About every 3 months,
that
right.
you're having a conference.
State conference, general conference, ward conference.
Ward conference, that's right.
So you need those conferences. You need those things to help us remember. But it made me realize when I think about the pandemic that sometimes those things can be taken away. Are we going to stay true and faithful are we going to do the remembering on our own? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Or are we going to have the calendars on our phone to remind us every time to read our scriptures at night or something? Or
Right.
are we just going to know, I've got it, I need to remember,
Right.
I need to do my scriptures tonight? Are we in the habit? Are
Habit,
we making
yeah,
the habit? Because
establishing
you can
those
see today
habits.
there's a lot that's not with us anymore.
That's
after
right.
this pandemic. They don't come to church anymore. But then again, on the other hand, like I say, opposition in all things, opposite in all things, there's people that have come because of the pandemic, and now
That's true.
There's new people.
That's
and
true.
So,
yeah.
It's just, it can seem dire sometimes, but in reality, there's good things that come out of it. Moses, he's seen all.
That's
he's
right,
seen
yeah.
all this stuff,
Yeah.
and he just don't want these people to go through the worst thing, which is losing their testimony.
Losing the testimony and experiencing the spiritual death that you've referenced many
Right.
times on the
Yeah.
podcast and everything. But
I'll read the one script. Can I just read Deuteronomy 6:7?
Yep.
This is he says, "And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children." In other words, he's talking about teaching them basically the words, the commandments, all the wonderful things. This is Moses telling. He says, "Thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up." In other words, all day long, keep the gospel in your mind, keep
Right.
the doctrine in your mind, and that's our charge today.
Right. Well, alrighty, there you go. Until next time, y'all keep on striving. All right, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. If you would like to follow us on social media, you can do that through Instagram and Facebook at Saints in the South. A great place to join in the discussion would be our podcast group page on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter, Saints in the South, at 5 Southern Saints. And then, of course, on YouTube, hit the like button, notification bell. And if you're not already, be sure and subscribe. And then finally, you can check us out through our website, saintsinthesouth.com, where you can have access to all the podcast and YouTube videos. And then we would love for you to take the opportunity and leave us a review and rating. Thanks again for all of your support, and we will see you next time.